What is going on, guys? Today, another day at the BPF shop. So a customer brought this in today. It's a G8 hood, and he wants this thing fully carbon fiber. Now, I know what y'all are thinking. Why not buy a carbon fiber trunk? You know, I don't know, and I can double check to see if they make them for the G8, but he wanted to go this route and just skinning it. I'm not going to argue with him. His choice. So we got the spoiler, which we're going to skin in the same weave pattern, the actual full trunk, and I'm going to have to do this in several different pieces. So first things first, take off the spoiler, take off all the little accessories here. Now, I really hate breaking clips. So the biggest thing is make sure you have your clip tool. These are actually pretty easy. You just simply squeeze and push out. Those are the actual rubber stoppers that hold your license plate. Those are pretty easy to pull out. These just twist off like so. Pretty easy. Another thing I do is I always Ziploc bag everything that belongs to a certain part for a customer. I never just throw it around the shop and lose it. So there you go. Quick and easy. Same thing here. It's just 3-pinch. And they're out. Now this one, I have to see what whatever socket it uses. Excuse me. And then there's also the lighting system, which I'm gonna have to get further into and dig into. Yeah. And then after that, we got the spoiler, which looks like it has one clip here, one over there, and I'll have to get a flashlight to see if it's being held on by a bolt, but it almost seems like it's just the clips and some double-sided sticky tape. Spoiler is off. Definitely a challenge. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 clips holding them on. Now, luckily, these clips you can buy at your local auto parts store. So what I did was, because you can't get a tool in there from the inside, there's just really no way to get in here with the tool. And you got to be careful because this metal is very sharp because it's just punched metal. It hasn't been sanded or grazed or anything. And so I got one of those razor blades that you use to take your inspection sticker off your windshield. Nice little flat with the little black handle. You can buy it like at Walmart, anywhere, you know, local hardware store, auto parts store. And what I did was I took the time to just press on each of the little finger clips, and I just luckily was able to break them off or cut them off. And then with my trim pulling kit, I slowly moved over and popped it off. So now it's time to sand this bad boy. That's the razor blade I'm talking about. Makes it nice and easy to just rest it up against the clip and push down. Breaks it right off. So now it's time to party. Grab that second. Now it's time to party with the power sander. One extra thing, guys. You want to grab one of these wheels. It's meant to. It's like a big eraser. So what's happening is I nicely sanded everything because everything's got to be nice and scuffed so it gets a hold. So you want kind of a rough grit. You don't want to pass that primer stage because they put all the protection to protect that metal, and we don't want to have that exposed. So you need your eraser here to pull off all the adhesive. Don't use Goo Gone or anything like that. You want to use this eraser guy. Here it is, all nicely sanded. Got rid of all that stuff. Now there's a few little small dings on this side. They're little. I want to body fill those, work those out, and then start the process. For now, I'm going to clean it up. My foaming action glass. Body work is complete. Make sure to put etching primer over any bare metal. The etching primer reduces the opportunity for moisture to hit the metal and rust out. I also do a filler primer just as an extra protective. It doesn't have to be all pretty, just make sure you do nice, thin, even coats. No heavy spray, thick stuff, because that will make the weave lumpy as well. Now this is a two-part piece, meaning I'm going to do it in two different sections to actually get the carbon fiber all completed on here. 99.99% of the time, you want to do it right at a body line that makes sense. If you stop here or any other random spot, matching up the weave is going to be hard, along with keeping the line straight, and then you'll see the actual difference between two fabrics meeting up. So the reason why I'm doing it in two different parts is simply because once you hit here, since I'm only working with so much carbon fiber, to reach into this divot here, it's going to alter the weave, and it's also going to make it very distorted and very hard to do. If I was working with a mold, that's simpler to work with because everything's a negative and it flows over it easier. Plus, that's a infusion process, which is a whole different science. We'll go into a whole different time. So when you're doing it, you want to go up to a body line. Now at the body line, since I'm doing the top half first, I set a heavy duty painter's tape and then a duct tape. Now, what's nice about the duct tape is that the epoxy resin doesn't care to stick to it too much, as long as it's just strips and nothing like flattened and heavy duty. You could also use thermal tape. This tape is used for powder coating and anything that needs to get baked. Epoxy resin doesn't like that as well, because this one's got a coating where this one's like a plastic. Now you don't want to use packaging tape. Packaging tape is too thin and it has like a small chemical interaction with the epoxy, and it kind of melts it and creates a big mess. Now remember, when you're doing all this, taking these extra steps is to reduce the amount of time during cleanup. Cleaning up is such a pain. Like if you had drips here, then you have to go and sand all that, then maybe body work it. Why deal with that when you can go ahead and avoid it? So layer 1 and then layer 2, which we'll talk about that entire process while we're doing it. I also taped up in here where the license plate lights and a bunch of other things sit. That's going to go a metallic grayish black color that I normally use. What's nice about that color is that it is hard to distinguish between the carbon fiber weave and the paint color, and it doesn't make it look tacky or cheesy at all. It's a very clean transition. I don't use solid black. Black pops out too much, but the metallic gray that I use, like a gunmetal black gray, very nice color to use. I'm also gonna have to push in between all these crevices. Now here you'll see the thermal tape pushed in from the back side. I normally don't epoxy in those areas, but for whatever reason, if some fell in there, very easy to clean up because that green tape is there. Also, a black plastic trash bag is going to go in this generalized area. You could use painter's paper, but the epoxy likes to stick through that. Sometimes it also kind of gets wet and messy. It's not fun. It can still be used. Now, I also did the same taping on the back side of the trunk, so that way, like I said, the least amount of mess to pick up, the better. Makes things quick and easy. So let's go on and add on this plastic bag. The next step: place your trunk onto the ledge of your workstation with some cardboard underneath and some cardboard on the floor to catch any kind of drippage that might fall off, or your station and area might look like that. This is the trash bag I was referring to in the earlier steps, just for that added protection to avoid any extra mess. Always good to avoid that. Threw some chains with some little thin rope onto the table to hold the trunk in place, just to avoid it from falling forward. And then I always put a little sample carbon fiber piece, so that way it lets me know which direction I want my weave pattern, because my customer has a rear lower diffuser and I want the weave pattern to match, just for that quality look and purpose of attention to detail, right? After that, I'm going to clean off with 70% alcohol and a shop cloth and make sure my surface is clean, mix some epoxy and add some black tint. Start this process. Now we're mixing the epoxy. Right now I'm using West Systems 105 epoxy resin mixed with 206 slow hardener because of the temperature. We're sitting about like 80 degrees, give or take, maybe 78. And then, but you always could use a fast hardener, which is the 205. The only problem with that is this is a pretty large piece. I want to make sure I give myself plenty of time to work with the resin and the carbon fiber. Alright, so I'm using my chip brush. Always pull on the chip brush to make sure you get out any loose bristles. You're going to get your epoxy started on one end, move to the other, and try your best to keep, a good steady consistency. Alright, so you see the different coloring. I've made a couple of different batches, and some of the tint was darker than others, which is no big deal. Luckily, the carbon fiber I use has a super tight weave, so a lot of color doesn't transpire through. And so, as long as it's got some kind of tint, these corners I kind of go up, because if I'm going side to side, it'll come off the line and hit the tape, which I'm going to clean up as much as I possibly can, because the least amount of mess that I have on the tape, then the carbon fiber won't stick on it, and it's going to be easier for me to clean up when it's time to cut the excess carbon fiber. So I'm just trying to finish this up, and then we'll let it sit for about 30-45 minutes. Check out the progress. It's got to be a little tacky. I like to, on big pieces like this, I like to get it when it's still more wet than tacky, because for whatever reason, if I've got to pull the carbon fiber up and relay it down, if it's still on the more wet side than it is the dry tacky side, it's easier to pull up, so that way I can make adjustments without it affecting the weave. So once it becomes too tacky, you won't be able to do that. Once you pull up on that weave, man, that's it. Like it's the whole piece of fabric, pretty rough. So here I'm just kind of touching up wherever I need. I don't know if you can tell in the camera, but I try not to have it too thick, because once you do it too thick, then it starts dripping off when it's time to lay the fabric. If it's too thick, it'll kind of like bleed through, and then you'll have a lot of waviness. So we don't want to do that. Here I'm just kind of blending in some of these colors, and so that way this red part is a little more on the black side. So it's just a real quick brush. Like I said, you don't want it too thick. Already starting to get a little sticky. Try to just make sure you've got proper coverage all the way through. There we go. Kind of brush real quick back and forth. The thing about carbon fibering, everything's timed. Time, curing. A lot of people don't understand the concept behind it. They think it's a real quick, easy ordeal, but it takes a lot of skill. Like, I'm sure there's, on some of these videos you're going to be watching of mine, you're going to see that it's like, make it probably look a little easy. But when it's your turn, it might not come out as nice as the first time, and that's okay. Practice makes perfect. OCD is definitely a plus. So I'm going to let that sit like that. And you see here, I can already see it kind of dripping a little. So I'm going to go ahead and brush it off, get my cup. Because I don't want that thickness to come through, because then it's going to show on the carbon fiber. It's going to create the waves. So let me kind of go back through it. So what I normally do, even though I said I'll come back in like 30-45 minutes, I'll probably check it about every 20 minutes or so. 15-20 minutes just to double check to make sure everything's still looking okay and I'm not falling behind on schedule. So there we are.